Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have a leader in economic development who's redefining what it means to champion growth in America's heartland. Her name is Samantha. She is an economic development advocate for the city of Bloomington, Illinois. Samantha,
Yes.
you have this new role. We want
Yeah.
to welcome you to the show. Would you tell everybody all about you and what you're doing at the city of Bloomington?
I would love to. Thank you first and foremost for having me today, Teasha. I am so excited to be joining you. Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar, Bloomington, Illinois is a sister city with a town called Normal. So we're 2 hours from St. Louis, about 2.5 hours from Chicago. So we really are a hub city. It's a great place to be. My role here at the City of Bloomington is our economic development advocate. You don't really hear that in a municipality. You don't hear about that role very often. You hear economic development specialist, manager, director, those types of roles. But as an advocate, I work not only with our internal stakeholders, making sure that our processes are moving smooth and that we are bringing in retailers and bringing in manufacturing and all the good stuff that, is going to build the tax base. But I also make sure that we're working with our external partners and that they're not always being told no and that things are working smooth for them. So we're doing things a little bit different here in Bloomington so that it's working on both sides of the table, both sides of the aisle, both sides of everything. And so that everybody's happy at the end of the day. And we haven't always been a community of yes. And so when, we had a little bit of some leadership change, we also had some mind shift here happening inside our municipality. And that's when things started changing and moving. And it's been a really great time.
I love that. Matter of fact, let's stay here a little bit. Can you walk me through what this change has unlocked? What can you do now as the city is champion that previously maybe the structure made it a little bit harder? What I'm assuming is that our audience can learn a little bit about these different ways of thinking about how to structure these groups. And tell me more about what does the word advocate actually mean to you in doing this work?
You would think traditionally advocate is someone who's out there being a lobbyist. That's not my role. I'm not a registered lobbyist. I'm not going out and finding funding outside of, just maybe the traditional grant funding. But what I'm doing is making sure that our internal processes aren't just working for us. When you are working with your commercial brokerage group, when you're working with your labor trades unions, all these people that are out there doing the work for you. We're in here, we're pushing paper, we're doing the things that we're doing every day in and day out. They're out there in the grind. So if something's not working for them, a lot of times when they're dealing with us on a municipal level, they'll oftentimes hear the word, no, we can't change that. This is just our process. It's the codes. And yes, we're working with the International Building Code. We're working with the residential code. We have our own city codes, but there are processes in place that we have implemented that we can change with some flexibility. Yes, we must do things a certain way in order to make sure that there's law and order here inside our walls. But if something's not working for them and it's raising costs or it's just making things generally difficult and to no uncertain end, right? They have a one-stop shop. They have one person that they can call rather than calling, let's say, the Public Works Department and then the engineering department, and then us, and then community impact and enhancement to get through to a code enforcement officer. They've got one person that they can call. That one person can gather up all of their feedback about the process that's making it difficult, and then maybe listen, learn, figure out, is there a way and a path forward, a takeaway, and then find out how we can streamline that process. Maybe it's that something is taking 3 months when it should be taking 3 weeks, taking 1 month instead? Is it something that's taking 5 days and it really could take 1 day? Is it something that's costing them on the side of fees? It's costing them $300 and really it doesn't cost us that much in time in terms of like internal staff time. So could we lower that fee and it's not going to hurt our general fund revenue that much? Like, these are the types of things that I look at while also doing traditional economic development. So that's what it looks like. I
So
mean,
you
yes,
put a people face on top of it. So who are the people that we're serving and what are their exact needs? And I
abs-
really, really appreciate your listen, learn, and then I'm gonna change it to ideate, right?
yes,
So
yes,
yeah, really good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a little bit about it. That's the high level. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it, but that's a high level look at it.
As you guys have been discovering what happens as you transition to this more people focused lens, can you give me a specific moment from one of these transitions where something clicked, where you discovered something about how economic development actually works that reframed your complete approach? And then what did you learn that changed how you show up in this role today?
From an economic development standpoint, we're still doing a lot of the traditional things, but we're being more creative in how we use the tools that we have. We're taking a step back and figuring out when do we have to move faster versus when can we pump the brakes. I think before we were very regimented. We had a process. We stuck to the process. The process is what we did. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that that was that if there's a municipality that does that and you have a process, you stick to your process and that's what you do, that is perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with that. But it's also okay to color outside the lines. There are
Mm,
no two projects that are exactly the same, and so why should the process always be exactly the same, right? As long as when you are in the moment, you are documenting what you are doing. Because we are a municipal government, documentation is king. Just like outside in economic, cash is king, documentation is king, right? So we have
mhm.
to process and document what we're doing. No two projects are exactly the same. And so that's how it goes for us right now with the number of projects that we have rolling in. Bloomington is busier than we have ever been. We are growing at like at a dynamic speed. Not to
Yeah.
use your podcast name, but
Yeah,
we are
that's okay.
growing at a dynamic speed. I mean, we have stuff coming in faster than we ever have before, and that there are a lot of eyes on Bloomington, and we are so
Yeah,
excited for that. But we also have to be very mindful of what we spend municipal funds on. We're still
yeah.
great stewards of the dollars. So sometimes we're moving very quick,
Mhm.
sometimes we're putting the brakes on, but that's when you have to take a look at the processes you have and decide, are you doing everything by the book, or are you going with the flow and just documenting as you go?
Yeah, coloring outside of the lines, like, you just you named it. And, okay, so let's talk a little bit about incentives. It's kinda keeping in track with where you were going here.
Yeah,
So you're coordinating TIF districts, you've got tax abatement, sales tax, rebates,
yeah,
facade grants, enterprise zones. These are powerful tools that each fit different situations. So
yeah,
when you're thinking about a project,
yeah.
what's the framework for matching the right tool to the right opportunity? How do you think about the relationship between the public investment and the long term community return that Bloomington is actually hoping to see?
It really is, as I said before, project specific, and it's about the capital stack and the funding. It's always going to go back to what is the gap on the project. I mean, these are municipal funds at the end of the day. So here at the city, we also have a regional economic development council, the Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council, that works in partnership with us, and they manage the enterprise zone. So that's a beautiful partnership that we have. So they are always going to be in lockstep with us to be able to kick that can over to them to say, hey, your project falls within the enterprise zone. We're going to marry you up with them and they're going to manage that piece for you. You will absolutely be able to benefit from that. But in terms of sales tax abatement, property tax abatement, we have a standardized housing incentive because housing is such a major issue right now in every area, right? Especially Bloomington with the growth that we've had and that Normal has had. And not to dwindle down anyone else's housing issues, but everyone has it. So we've got the standardized housing. We do have several TIF districts, but it's always going to come down to what is the gap in the financing for the project. And so typically we will ask a developer to submit a pro forma to us. We'll
Hmm.
review the site, we'll We'll review their project, we'll review their performa, and then we'll usually send it off to a third party for review too. So we have a non-biased review because
That's
it's not
good.
always about us. It's tax dollars, right? Consistently trying to be the best stewards of the taxpayers. So if we think it looks good, but if our third party says, no, they can make this work on their own, you might, it's in a TIF district. So if you want
Mhm,
to pick in this much of the TIF, sure, we can make that work, but
mhm.
absolutely no to these other things, then, we're on the same page there. So they're great tools to have, but as long as everyone is always on a good page of making sure you're being good stewards, that's what we're all about.
Yeah, so it sounds like stewardship and alignment are
Mhm.
are mission critical when you're thinking about how to leverage these tools.
Yeah.
Okay, here's an example from your area. So the GJ Lofts project, the redevelopment of the former State Farm building in your downtown. That's
Mhm.
a legacy project, right? The kind that usually shapes a city for decades. So projects of that scale also involve a lot of moving parts. You got
Yes.
multiple stakeholders, layered approvals, long timelines. As
Mhm.
a city's advocate, you're championing it internally while also being the external face of work.
Yeah.
How do you actually think about your role in keeping that kind of complex project moving forward consistently? Like, what does great advocacy look like across a multi-year arc?
That one has proven already that we had to reinvent that one already once, right? So we had a redevelopment agreement and it already had to go for an amendment because it's such a legacy project and such a large project, they had to go through for some phasing on it. So
Mm,
and that's where kind of that advocacy role comes in. And really I have to give all hats off and all credit to my director on that one because she has been the creative mastermind on that project.
mhm.
And I can't sit here and take credit for that one. She's been
Yeah.
just the creative mastermind on that one. But for me, it's just about making sure the public understands the importance of that project.
Mhm.
That's where the advocacy on that one comes in
That's really good.
because that project is going to cause a bit of disruption in and around our downtown. Um,
Mhm.
and because they're going to be bringing in something that our downtown has never seen before, national chains. Our downtown
Mm,
has never seen a national brand. They already have an LOI with a Starbucks to go into the bottom floor of that project. So
mhm.
for me, my position in this is to make sure that people understand the importance of what that can do to elevate our community. So that's
Yeah.
where I come into this.
I think that's great. The other thing is if folks are listening, I heard a key decision that has to be made about these longer term projects, which is about phasing. So, how do we think about phasing in the planning stage of the project? That's something that could be pulled out as a decision to think about up front. Okay, so your background is communications, digital strategy, advertising.
Yeah.
Economic development is traditionally a relationship driven field.
Yeah.
And you're bringing this lens of fresh storytelling on top of that foundation. So tell me, what excites you about applying that marketing background to economic development? How are you thinking about telling Bloomington's story to audiences who might not yet know what the city offers?
For me, I find the most passion in just what you said, telling the story, telling people what they have yet to discover about Bloomington. But my favorite thing about Bloomington and our sister city of Normal is the people. You have to
Oh,
see it to believe it. It's something special. And so being able to tell that story, being able to live and feel that environment and the community itself is just so beautiful. There's something about the Midwest. I mean, Midwest nice is a real thing. Um, once you're here, you feel it. I mean, we just celebrated the grand opening of a Dutch Brothers here today, and yesterday we did their ribbon cutting, and a few of their management team moved. Moved here specifically for their role. Moved here from Kansas. The other one moved here from Washington, and they were like, "Everyone has been so nice," and I was like, "Yeah, it's Midwest nice. I mean, it's real." So,
I love that.
there's just something about it, but that's what drives me. What drives me is building community and telling the story about that community. It's something that I think has just always
Yeah.
been within me.
I think the one thing that I'm hearing that I'm really enjoying is that your people focused lens doesn't stop the job creation boat, which is ultimately what you're driving in economic development. That's going to happen even with your lens on the people. I want to
Yeah.
give a quick message to our audience. I want you to think about your own community's economic development efforts. What strategic decisions have created the most meaningful impact on attracting investment while strengthening community character? Share
Mm.
your experiences with us on LinkedIn and other social media using the Dynamic Decisions podcast. Okay, so you're the translator between two worlds. You got
Mhm.
private developers think in terms of ROI and market timing and risk adjusted returns. And then you got the public sector who thinks in terms of community benefit, equitable development, long term fiscal impact. Both
Mhm.
perspectives are valid and they don't always speak the same language. Can
Right.
you give me an example in general terms of how you help bridge those perspectives? Where have you seen the translation work to create better outcomes than either side would have reached alone?
I wish that I had a lot of experience for myself to say that that's a seat that I get to sit in. I would say that that falls more on our planning team. So I think more as a city planner, that's a seat that you sit in when you're kind of in that urban planning space. There's a lot of public hearings, plan commission meetings, and things that they often sit in because the things that we to bring to the table before they ever actually come before for a redevelopment agreement or come before with their building permits and things. A lot of times they have to be rezoned.
Mm,
They'll come in and they'll, maybe the land that they are trying to secure is originally a piece of ag land, or it's something that's zoned M1, which is light manufacturing, and they want to change it to B1, which is going to be like general commercial.
mm,
And so they have to go to zoning first. And so they have those conversations with the public.
mhm,
So it's not really something that I have a lot of experience to tap into. But what I can say is that if you are in a municipality and you're not in the same department with your planning team,
mhm.
build a relationship with that planning team.
That's good.
As an economic developer, if you don't have a relationship with your planning team and you don't understand their role, you're not going to have a successful economic development strategy. You're not going to have a success. You won't be successful in economic development.
That's good. Really good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is the thing that I love to do with all of my guests. I take them through a decision making persona
Ooh,
assessment. Okay.
okay.
So we're going to explore your decision making style through this persona assessment. I'm going to ask you four different questions that represent different decision making approaches. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much asking the question that way resonates with how you actually approach decisions. And you'll have a scale of 0 to 100% for each question. However, my little trick
Oh,
is you only get 100% across all four.
okay.
Okay. So we just have to keep track of where you are along the
Okay, in my
journey.
head.
All right. So the very first one is called the feeler. It's a values driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when a development proposal comes across my desk, I ask myself, what does this actually do for Bloomington's character and community fabric? I can count the jobs created and the tax base expanded, and those numbers matter. But I also want to know whether residents will feel proud of what we built, whether new investment creates opportunities for the businesses already here, whether revitalization honors what makes Bloomington authentic. My time working on facade grants and streetscape improvements taught me something important. The best economic development strengthens the places people already love. So when I'm advocating internally for a project to get resources and attention, I'm weighing more than the spreadsheet. I'm asking whether this makes Bloomington more vibrant, more inclusive, more of itself. Whether the people who've invested their lives here will see themselves in what comes next. So,
Mm-mm.
Samantha, how much does approaching decisions by asking yourself that kind of value based question resonate with you?
Oh, so I don't get to know all 4 questions before I weight them?
No,
Man,
ma'am.
this is so hard. Okay. And that was such a good question. Man, you're really making this hard on me.
On
Girl.
purpose. On
Okay.
purpose.
Well, I see, I don't know what the other 3 questions are.
Mm-mm. And you won't until I get there.
I'm gonna go darn, okay, I'm gonna give this 60%, I guess,
Okay.
because I just really don't know what the others are, and I'm gonna kick myself if
So give me a little why. So why are you giving it your 60%?
because the fabric in the community is really important. Obviously, jobs creation is important too, but generally speaking, we look for highest and best use of the land. With the things that we bring here are creating jobs. The things that we bring here are, building up the tax base. It's all of those things. We are often approached about developments, but it's a lot of times it's the things that we are looking for too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we get a lot of RFIs and we'll submit to a lot of RFIs, but those are statewide and we don't get them, right? So we submit, we don't get them, because we don't have buildings with outrageously tall ceilings and, 200 plus acres of, green fields, and we don't want, food processing in the middle of our city. Like, it's stuff like that, right? So we're not going
Yeah.
to submit to some of these. Yes, those would bring a lot of jobs, but that's not what our
Doesn't
that's
fit
not
the values. It
that's
doesn't
not
fit the
in the value of
values.
the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
so it's all of those things. A lot of the things that we're bringing are all of those things because Bloomington is special.
I love
And
that.
that's what keeps people here. There are some people who have never left. They've grown up here. And if they have left, they've boomeranged back. The number of people you talk to here, they'll tell you I'm a boomerang. Like, that's a thing you hear here,
I'm a boomerang. I
I'm a
love it.
boomerang.
Yeah.
There's something special about it here.
I love
So,
it. All right, here's the next one. It's called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. So
okay.
this persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and
Mhm.
considering multiple scenarios. So when I'm deciding where to focus my energy across multiple projects, downtown mixed use here, commercial development there, facade grants over there, I'm constantly asking myself, what are the second and third order effects? How does remote work continue to reshape where people choose to live and work? And does this project create the walkable amenity, rich experience that resonates in that environment? How is retail evolving? And how do we support businesses positioned for what's next? What does Bloomington's quality of place need to look like 5 and 10 years from now to keep attracting investment and talent? I'm trying to map whether today's decisions create compounding advantages, projects that catalyze additional investment, infrastructure that enables future opportunities, partnerships that strengthen over time. I want to make moves today that give Bloomington more options tomorrow, not fewer.
Mm.
So, Samantha, how much does that forward thinking scenario planning approach
I knew I
to,
was going to kick myself.
I know it, but that's okay. How much?
I and now I see I have 2 more questions to go. Sure, 20% because, infrastructure, right? You can't continue developing at the pace in which you want to develop if you're not thinking about future infrastructure. And that's something we talk about, I mean, oh my gosh, weekly. Future infrastructure. How do we get where we want to go so that we can do the things we want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I mean, we just had a meeting with our water reclamation district this week, my director and I, talking about things that aren't even going to impact our community for probably like 25 years. And so the things that you're talking about right now, those very things, those are things that we consistently talk about. The developments that we bring in, we don't have a lot of big office space, but we do have a lot of vacant office, right? Not a lot, but we do have some vacant office. We have our problem children. I'll give it some air quotes. We have some vacant properties, and those are things that we consistently think about and talk about. And we don't want to find ourselves in positions with future developments that end up being those problem children in the years to come. So 20%.
Okay, 20% it is.
With the next 2 questions that I'll kick myself for giving that first one 60. And
You
we
ready?
know they'll be tens, but let's hear them anyway.
Let's hear them anyway. Okay, the next one is called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So, this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for distinctive opportunities, often finding success by approaching problems from a different angle. I keep coming back to a question that shapes how I think about this work. What if Bloomington's real opportunity comes from leaning into what makes us distinctive rather than trying to look like everywhere else? The
Oh.
cities that build lasting success tend to be the ones with a clear identity, a story that's authentically theirs, a sense of place that you can't replicate. My marketing background pushes me to ask myself whether we're sometimes too cautious in how we position the city. What if authenticity and distinctiveness are actually the most durable economic assets we have? What if supporting the entrepreneurs and small businesses already here, investing in quality of place, telling Bloomington's story with confidence creates more sustainable momentum than any single recruitment win? I find myself asking what we might be underestimating about our own strengths and what would change if we led with those. So, Samantha, how much does that assumption, challenging, distinctive strategy style of questioning resonate with your decision making process?
Well, unfortunately, I have to give that 10%
Okay.
because I like to, round things out in tens. I think what I'd like to say about that is I think there's a concept in which you can do a strategy for both.
Mhm.
Tell your story about the history and pay tribute to what is here and what's beautiful and stable and traditional about the community while also attracting and recruiting and positioning yourself for the future. Because you can pull in and attract new while sustaining and recruiting and nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit that you have and that you continue to maintain. Because that's what's really beautiful about what we have going on here is the robust entrepreneurial spirit. So I think we could and can continue to have that while, reaching and grasping towards the future of retaining or attracting new retail.
Super good. I love it. That's really good. All right. So, right now, 60% feeler, 20% planner, 10% counter. And I've got the last one for you. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
It's called the data driver. It's the evidence based decision maker. So this persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to
Mhm.
validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So before I recommend an approach or decide where to invest my advocacy energy, I want to understand what the evidence tells me. I'm looking for patterns. What kinds of incentive structures tend to produce strong project outcomes? What's the actual fiscal performance of TIF districts over time?
Mm.
How are job creation and retention trending across different industries here? What does downtown foot traffic look like after major developments come online?
Mm.
That data helps me to see what's working. But I also know some of the most important factors don't show up cleanly in a spreadsheet. How small business owners describe their experience working with the city. What developers say about Bloomington when they're choosing where to invest. The qualitative signals that tell me whether our reputation as a place to do business is strengthening. The goal is combining the measurable things like fiscal impact and project completion with the harder to quantify, like community trust, downtown vibrancy, and quality of life.
Mhm.
Because in the long run, those qualitative factors determine whether growth is welcomed and sustained. So, Samantha, how much does that data driven, evidence focused approach to questioning resonate with how you make your strategic decisions?
Yeah, I would say 10. And honestly, now that I'm like rolling it back in my head, not to say that data is not important, but I've never been a data first gal. And that's probably why I'm the advocate.
That's
Honestly,
right. That's right. It's a
that's
good fit.
probably why. Data
Yeah.
is incredibly important. I mean, I'm always going to go for the data.
Yeah.
I will always go for the data, but I will never reach for it first. I want to have a conversation. I want to build a relationship. I want to understand you. I want to understand your project. I want to understand the community. I want those facts. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So 10.
Awesome. Good. 10% data driver. Thank you so much for doing that. It's just always really fun to look at, how we think about things, how we strategically decide. I think that if our audience is in it, that you can see some of yourself in these personas. And the thing is, usually you have a team. And so you fill up
Yeah.
different personas with different people on the team. Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to other economic development professionals who might be looking to become more effective champions for growth in their communities, what would it be?
Ask the question about what you're doing wrong.
Mm, that's good.
You can't effectuate real change within your community if you don't know what you're doing wrong. If you always believe that you guys are doing everything spot on and that things are going smooth and that nothing is going wrong internally, then you're never going to effectuate real change.
That's
So just
good.
ask.
That's good. Ask what's going wrong. You guys heard it from Samantha. Hey, thank you so much. Would you tell everybody where they can learn more about you and more about the city of Bloomington?
Yeah, so find us on LinkedIn. You can follow me, Samantha Mlot, on LinkedIn, or follow the City of Bloomington Economic Development on LinkedIn. You can also visit our website, bloomingtonil.gov.
I love it. And for our listeners who are interested in talking more about what we've talked about here, please do share dynamic decisions, share about what you've heard today. And thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed the episode, subscribe it, rate it, and of course, share it with your network and keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.